third ever person to get inducted into the 2 Comma Club Hall of Fame, is what I'm calling it now. Some agents won't know what the 2 Comma Club is. We'll cover that at some point. But I think, first of all, bringing it back to kind of Sanjay, OG Sanjay. We were talking off camera then about when we had iPhones taped up to boxes back in the Regis days.
Inventive.
Things were different then, weren't they? But
very different.
You know, looking back at it now, you think back to kind of not necessarily the market. Obviously, the market we know is different, but as a general kind of rule of thumb for a state agency, do you think the industry? I feel like the industry is much different in the last 4 years. Still not moved at a hyper speed like maybe you have as an individual agent, but as an industry, I do feel it's quite a bit different. Do you feel that yourself, as in, let's say, 4 years?
Do you know what? I was having a conversation with one of my sellers the other day, actually, and I said, like, since I launched this business 4 years ago to like now, I've learned like probably 3-4 times as much as I did in my 10 years in agency. And that's just from like innovating and doing something different. And I realised when they were having a conversation with me about another agent, they were doing the same thing they were 20 years ago. And it's just like, it's interesting to see the comparison between the two. But at the same time, I don't really care what's going on elsewhere because I'm too laser focused on what's going on. That's why we're here today, right?
Absolutely. I mean, the 2 Comma Club, that ultimately means that in the period of time that your business is launched, you've completed on over £1 million worth of house sales. And if you think back to the first one, to the most recent one, would you say that the offering that you've offered the client is much different in that time frame in terms of marketing service level?
Yeah, 100%. But do you know what? First of all, I can't take all credit for the £1 million, can I? I have got business partners.
Yeah.
I've gone through a couple of business partners, obviously Ellen, Matt, and now Ryan. So they have contributed to that. So I don't want to take all the credit, is what I'm trying to say. But at the same time, yes, they're like, I don't know. It's really just interesting to have conversations with this conversations 4 years on as opposed to year one. Whereas year one, it was all fresh, it was all new, it's all exciting, it's all different. We're trying to like put our stamp on the market, put our stamp on the business model we offer. And like, even to today, like even this morning, I was having a conversation on the valuation about like what we do differently because they just never heard of anything like that before. So as much as like it's normal for us to do day in, day out, and we see it every day, the public and some of the clients still don't know. It's quite nice and refreshing to see that because it just keeps us on our toes, right?
Yeah, it's crazy really how when you target a certain group or a certain clientele, or we call it an avatar, it's crazy how that group eventually hear about you, know about you, understand the brand, but the other groups that you're not targeting have got no idea. They don't even know that we're in existence. Prime example of that is recently I hooked up with an industry PR person to kind of talk about maybe the brand story and things like that this year, to get a bit more into the industry press. And bearing in mind, this guy writes, articles daily for the industry press. He'd never heard of us. I was just like, that blows my mind. But it just shows that when you're focusing in a certain demographic, a certain target market, and you talk to them and you call them out, that they're the ones that listen and everyone else is kind of not aware, which is what you want. But what about service levels? What would you say in terms of sort of general agency from what you've seen with the Avocado expansion and the new agents? Do you think agents have got better across the group and the industry now from a service level point of view?
100%. Like, not saying it's going to be 100% across the board. Obviously not. It never is. Like, no one's perfect, and as we say, there's always room for improvement. But there has been so many more conversations over the past year or maybe 2 years with clients and other agents that people are just wanting to level up their game and just provide a better service. Like, you know what I'm like. I'm always said from day one, do right by the client and you'll always win. And that's in any business you're in, right? Because after that, and it's really interesting, this morning on that same valuation, I said to them, when I was in year one, I wanted to get to the end of year one and just be able to grow this business based on recommendations. And it took me best part of 18 months. So from 18 months, I've never chased anyone for a valuation. I never hound, call, ring round, all that crap. No, I'm not interested. But since then, I've just got more and more recommendations coming in. So that just goes to show the service levels you can offer and you can portray in the marketplace to make sure you're getting the rewards back, right? And now we're in a position where we're picking and choosing who we want to work with, and we have been doing that for the last few years. That's mad.
Yeah.
Like you say that to any estate agent pretty much in the country, they're going to be like, what? Do you not just take on anything? Of course not, because it's service levels. Do right by the client, you'll always win.
That exclusivity as well really does allow you to home in the service levels, the consultancy, the advice, and the time and energy that you can give a client. I mean, we were talking off camera and earlier last month where we had our big kickoff meeting, and we had all sorts of different topics. In fact, we spoke about everything other than estate agency in that particular kickoff. But you were talking about the importance of balance as well. And I know when you left the industry the first time, when you were employed and you left the industry to go in a totally different direction, a lot of the reasons behind that was kind of balance, stress levels, enjoyment factor. And now, obviously, you came back into it, but this time in a very different way. How are you finding 4 years on the whole sort of balance element of things?
It's been, I'd probably say it's been up and down. Like, the thing is, you just go through like the cycles. Like, no one is going to be 100% perfect, streamlined all the way. Like, I remember the first year was like, I was working probably 16-hour days, like every day. I remember doing these remember the live videos we were doing on Thursday at like 7 o'clock in the evening, 8 o'clock in the evening, like consistently for that year. And then I was working until 12 editing videos. Like, there was no real balance there. But at the same time, I'm quite glad I did that, because I kind of saw where I could push myself to and where the limit is. And I say this to clients. Like, I tell them, I don't want to get in a position where I can't work with you and I can't offer you the time and value that you need. That's not what I'm about. So I always take a step back and say, well, I know my limit. So it's massively important. But I think now, yeah, you kind of just know where the land lies.
What do you think is your identity with those clients that are recommending you? Kind of when they're recommending you to someone, what do you think they're kind of describing you as an agent as?
So I went to see Jenny and Jerry. Big shout out to Jenny and Jerry. I went to see them. Went to their new house, one of our clients, and I dropped them off a gift. And as I was leaving, their friend came in, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is my estate agent." That same thing what you say.
Yeah.
They were like, "This is my estate agent. If you ever want to sell, don't go anywhere else. Call Sanjay." And I said hello to them and stuff like that. And that's just a prime example of where someone that's so hell-bent on one person, and given those guys had probably dealt with 8 different agents who consistently hounded them, called them, and pretty much like just pissed them off the whole time they were on market. So, and it took us obviously they were the unique home, 2-3 years on, but they still want to recommend us. And that's massive. Like, that's huge. You don't get that pretty much anywhere. Like, that level of intensity, and like, don't use anyone else, like, direct from a client.
Yeah, it's the continuity of your time, isn't it? And your energy with them, and that period of time, you build that relationship, that bond. You talk about 3 years just in some of those offices, where those agents are kind of calling them and trying to sort of tout the business on. You think how many staff changes in that 3 years there's been. It's quite significant, actually. Just in that turnover, so they don't have that continuity. For you then, from a financial point of view, from a business planning point of view, you've moved house in that period of time, bought a new place.
Yep.
I think you sold an apartment, didn't you? You had a new apartment, bought a lovely house in the village. What's the kind of next steps? What's the next step on the 2 kind of target look like for you?
What, personally or business?
Yeah,
personally. Yeah. I mean, I actually basically refurbished 2 properties last year without even thinking about it. Like, one of them was my rental property, which I sold, and then obviously the one I bought. Like, I could have never done that if I was still working in an employed life. Like, to refurbish a whole house from scratch, a 3-bedroom house, is a lot of money you're going to be spending. And to not have the surplus money, but to have the money there to use it to do it. I never took a loan out. I didn't take any loans out, any credit cards, nothing. That's like, and I do look back sometimes like, that's quite good. You were able to do that without, because if I was a normal person, Joe Blogs, working for someone, I know it's like, you kind of in debt if anything, so you're not going to even have the capital to do that. And if you do, you're going to have to get a loan out, and then interest rates and obviously whatever. So that was quite mad, but I kind of want to maybe look into that a little bit more, because it was a lot of fun. I did like to project manage it. I don't like to do the work, but I like to project manage it. But it is quite fun to see a transformation. You know what it's like on Instagram? You see all these transformations and stuff. Like, I get it why people like it, and I've documented the whole lot, so I could publish it at one point. But
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
in your
Lot of
property
fun.
content world,
Exactly. Yeah.
Thinking back over the 4 years, for estate agents that are watching or listening, or anyone in general, what would be the two kind of physical tools that you think you couldn't do without if you had to do it again? Could be anything: software, data, marketing techniques, social platforms, anything really. But what would be the two sort of number one things that you couldn't do without if you were to do it again?
I definitely couldn't do without having the willingness to learn. I know that sounds like cliche, but I remember you and me used to talk about right at the start the amount we've had to learn on like software, video editing, marketing.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts when you think about it. And I was trying to explain this to someone the other day. I was like, our skills now are so transferable, but you have to have that willingness to learn. And I remember putting in the hours on YouTube videos and hours and hours and hours watching this stuff. And then obviously going to all the stuff that we've been doing over the last 4 years. Like if you don't have that willingness to learn, then you're just not going to be able to do it, are you? Like or you will be able to do it, but you won't be able to do it at the level that we're doing it at.
Yeah.
That's from my opinion.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's a mindset thing.
Yeah.
What about in terms of some of the tech that you've had? Could you live without Premiere Pro?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure there's other programs that you could use, but if there was a number one thing that you're like, this is my thing, this is like my second child or my first child.
100% Canva and Premiere Pro. Like from a marketing perspective, without those two things, right from day one, like it made our lives so much easier. Now with AI that's come in, like using Canva is so much easier. And I feel like people probably underestimate it a little bit, that maybe don't know about it or don't know how to use it. But you know for a fact, like the marketing that we've been pushing out, it's so much, it makes life so much easier. And there's no way I could have done these videos without Premiere Pro. In my opinion, that's just the way I would operate. For sure.
Yeah, it's high tech stuff. But I urge it doesn't have to be Premiere Pro, but I urge all estate agents to learn the art of basic level video editing. I think it's vital, absolutely vital. So in terms of the 2 Comma Club, the business partners you mentioned, shout out to Ellen, Ovi, Ryan, who obviously you're working with now. How important do you think it's been over the last 4 years for you to have a business partner, have a support mechanism within them? Do you think you've enjoyed the journey as much if it was all on your own? Or...
No, definitely not.
No?
Well, you remember, like it was 9 months in, wasn't I? And then I was like, I need to find a business partner because I was just overworked. I was stressed out, albeit I was working ridiculous hours and I was earning good money then. That was my first year, but at the same time I was like, this is just too much. It's really interesting, like the dynamic between the 3 people have been completely different every single time as well. Like so different. So it's been quite interesting for me on that side as well to go through those cycles with different people, and I've learned a lot off all three of them in different ways and different things. But yeah, I've definitely needed a business partner for sure. Made it life a lot bigger.
How does the dynamic change, do you think? Because you did start on your own, so like having a business partner for agents, because we're big fans of like duos and having a double act effectively. But a lot of the other self-employed brokerages, you don't often see that. It's normally kind of quite an isolated individual. But how different is it for you, do you think, by having that shared business partner?
You just be able to bounce off each other. And the thing is, me and the business partner I work with each time, we both had different skills and different traits and different things that we were good at and not so good at. So it's easy to play off. Whereas I feel like if you're just a single person, you have to do everything yourself. And sometimes it's not going to be at the level it should be as opposed to having a business partner. So like having a business partner, honestly, I can't stress, even if I wasn't doing this, I still would want a business partner in a different dynamic. You know what it's like with you and Mike. You have completely different personalities, different traits, but it works. And I feel like if you can't learn off each other and then grow, and it's quite interesting the amount of arguments you have, disagreements you have, which is normal, but at the same time, it's quite nice to see it on the flip side where you're just massively on the same page. And when you're both in sync, like Ellen and I used to finish each other's sentences. Me and Ryan do that now.
Nice.
So it's almost like you kind of found your way and you just know. And that's quite nice to have because it shows that you're both got the same goal and the same vision. And and then you just go.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think it's important you have that synergy. I think the disagreements are normally how you get to the next step quicker, and it does help with that whole process. With estate agency, this year, your business, you briefly touched on a few bits that you were doing differently this year, but is there anything that you've stopped in 2025? Is there anything you put a stop to in 2025?
So we've stopped doing the same thing we normally do each and every time when we go out for like marketing. I said to Ryan, let's try something different. Let's do a different video. It's all good and well and it works, but at the same time, I'm always like, how do we do one better? So last year we were just like, this is the process. This is what we do. Get it out, done. And it was almost just like a cycle. And it got quite, and for me, I don't like sitting still. I got quite boring. So I was like, we need to do something different. We need to do a different video. We need to do this. So I feel like this year, or last year, we definitely stopped that and going into this year.
So you've stopped doing the same process. You've actually, is that now custom for each client, or is that just, it's different than what it was?
No, custom for each client. Like it's different for if you've got different properties, like we do different things, but we're just trying to test the water. And like we're taking on less as well. Mm-hmm. So we've got more time to do more, but we've also increased our fees because we see our value and we see our worth now.
And with the off-market stuff, obviously the hashtag beat the portals is the brand, slogan, one of the techniques that we've got. But your social following now is pretty significant, even though the local Facebook group is bought an agent effectively so that no other agents can kind of talk in that even, let alone advertising it anymore, which is fine because it'd probably be different if you were launching today. You've already kind of leveraged a lot of the relevant traffic over to your page. But how important do you think your Facebook and Instagram stuff is for before it goes on the internet, and probably include the database in that as well?
Yeah.
Are you still getting a lot of activity pre-portals?
Do you know what's really interesting about that Facebook group that you're talking about?
Yeah.
I was sitting in a valuation the other day and I asked the lady, I was like, how did you hear about us? She was like, I saw someone post for a recommendations for a estate agent. Bearing in mind, side note, I'm blocked from this group. That's a story. Story for another day. But she told me, she was like, someone put in a recommendation for a estate agent. She was like, it was just like relentless. She was like, there was probably 50 comments for Avocado, Ryan and Sanjay, Avocado. And I don't even know. I don't even see this. So, and I'm not telling, I don't know the post is there. I have no idea. That is just testament to going back to like service levels, right? And doing right by the client. Evidently it's worked.
Yeah.
What was your question? Sorry.
Those Facebook groups at the beginning, we had so many recommendations so quickly because people saw that we were doing things differently. Yeah. That people actually thought we were fixing them.
Yeah.
Somehow. I don't know how you would do that, but they thought we were kind of creating the tag. But you can't even see the tag because you're banned from the group.
That's proof, right? That's proof, and that's mad. And then like Ryan's not banned from it, but he might not see it just because it might not come up. And then I hear it from a client. I'm just like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, great, okay. Because when I used to see them, I used to be able to go into the group and actually like, I used to send like my ex-clients who had recommended us like thank you messages, say, I like, appreciate like for recommended. So yeah, it's nuts. It's still nuts. And it still happens to today. So
the question was pre-portals. So, database that you built now, Instagram, Facebook page, your YouTube channel. How important do you think it is that the clients or the potential clients, the future clients that sit on those followings and in that database are aware that they can get an exclusive jump on the general public that just surf Rightmove? Is that still a thing, or has the market shifted from there?
100%. Like, I make this very transparent and I'm just super blunt about it. We have a process, and I think I worked out it was almost 50% of the homes we sold last year were sold prior to it going on the portals, Rightmove and Zoopla. So that was like a massive testament, and we still do it now. So our community knows. They know if something's coming up when they see a hashtag beat the portals video, or they see the video, the promo video, or the pictures, they'll know. They all know they've got 3 or 4 days before it goes live. And yeah, most of them get in before that. And if it works for the client, it works for the buyer, then happy days.
Yeah, and you're quite systematic on launch day for the portals as well, I believe. Is that still the case?
I've got a 12-day marketing strategy plan, and that's strict, and it works, proven over and over again.
And in terms of, as it sits today, what's the units that you've got under offer versus the units that you've got for sale?
We've got 4 for sale, and I think we've got about 50 under offer.
And that's the evidence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's bonkers. 4 for sale. Just nearly 50.
As of today, I think, definitely 4 for sale, and just probably about 50 for under offer.
That's mental.
Yeah.
And that's because of that 12-day plan,
yeah,
picking the clients you want to work with,
yeah,
being efficient with it, keeping your fees strong.
Yeah.
and obviously having the ability to be honest with the pricing strategy as well is included in that.
This is where like the misconception comes from, right? Because people say, oh, they're too busy to deal with the sales going through and we don't have a sales progressor or whatever you want to call them. But at the same time, they have to realise that we don't have a big for sale stock. That's where the time is just wasted, in my opinion, because you just got stuff on for the sake of it. So it works better for us that way. We know it works better for that, and it's proven, tested, tried, and it works.
Yeah.
Hence why I'm saying it today.
Because the time on feet, rather than the time behind the phone, is spent on the for sale stock. The driving, the inquiry-led stuff, the appointments.
Yeah.
That's the time on feet. That's the real time sapper, is the for sale stock. Actually, the under offer stock is not, sometimes it's stressful, but it's not a lot of time and energy that can go into that because there's so many parties involved that it's just a case of shifting some information and lending some advice. But that's time behind the phone, really.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's great that you kind of say that, and I'm glad that you shared those stats with us because it kind of just, it gives a ceiling point to the evidence that sits there as well.
Bear in mind, like I say, we've got 4 for sale. We've got 4 that's coming on, but they're not live yet. But like they might not even make that for sale bit. That's always the goal. It's always to just try and get that in that cycle.
So you're talking more waiting list style stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
I make a massive point about that. The reason why we've got a 12-day marketing strategy is to build a waiting list, to build the hype, build the suspense, and then book in. This is why people think, oh yeah, well that's why it goes under offer fairly quickly. But there's a whole lot more to it. It's not just stick it on and hoping for a random offer. There's actually thought and process behind every little bit of it. And that's one thing I've learned from obviously doing this with avocados, their marketing. It's like there's so much more to it if you do it right.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I think if you look at marketing, like from a product point of view, anytime there's a new launch of a product in any level of company, whether we're talking about McDonald's campaign at the moment with Stormzy, you know, it order like Stormzy, and, you know, he's now kind of doing the order over the top. But if you just take that as a campaign, that's their new product. It's not new. It's the same burger. It's the same chips. It's the same barbecue sauce. But they've just put a different campaign to it, and they've launched that with strategy. Each property that an estate agent launches needs the same custom strategy behind it. It needs the same fundamentals, the same skeleton of how you do it, but the custom element. Most agents, their kind of USP really tends to be, we'll just get it online really quickly.
Yeah. You know what's really funny about that, what you just said? It reminds me of when, I can't remember who we did the seminar with, but it was like, take a product that's being marketed, repackage it and repurpose it. You're not changing the product, you're just repackaging it. And that's essentially what we do with like the tout stuff. So a lot of people think, oh, I'm a lot of agents, and I've had conversations with other agents before, oh, you must be calling all of our like our for sale stock, da, da, da. I'm like, I've never called any one of your clients to tell them to come on market with me. They've reached out to me because they saw a different product, they saw a different package, they saw their home could be marketed in a different way. So they've reached out to me. And it's exactly what I explained to people on like valuations. I was like, you can have a can of Coke, or you can have like another can of Coke and repackage it and re-advertise it in completely different ways. One of it's really boring, or it can be really, really bloody exciting. This is the difference which I've learned in the last 4 years. And that in itself has been a bit of a game changer too.
Yeah, the point of difference is vital.
Yeah.
And that's given you that ability to do that commission, which has helped you, you know, sell an investment, buy a new property, get to that 2 comma club alongside having the business partners. But that strategy that you've built, that you've been so fixed on, kind of the power of no, you go back to the power of no, has allowed you to get to this point.
Let me tell you something. I reckon I'd probably say no probably 70% of the time to clients, to buyers, to whatever it is, because I know by saying no, it's doing right by the client. For example, if there's a client who wants to use us to sell their home, but first of all, they want to come on at a ridiculous extortionate price because the other agents told them to, and they don't want to pay our fee, fine, no problem at all. That's their decision. That's when I'll say no, because that's doing wrong by the client. So that's why I always stick by that. It all boils back to that, really. And it's same with like marketing. It's same with buyers. I had a buyer the other day. If they're gonna call up and want to view a property, I'm gonna ask them questions about why are you inquiring about this home. Have you driven past it? Do you know where it is? Blah blah blah. They're like, what's the price? And I'm just like, look, I don't think you're right for this home. Go and have a drive past for it and call me back. So people say, oh, if you say no, like it's a bad thing. But I don't have sales targets. I don't care. It's do right by the client, right?
Yeah. So I sent that email to the group about never split the difference and the black swan. And Chris Voss book, and I just think it's exactly that. It's the power of information. It's the power of good questions, and being in the position as an agent to advise and consult, which ultimately is what we're meant to be doing. We're meant to use our knowledge to consult and advise. And if you kind of take that black swan theory of finding that key information out for seller, for buyer, then ultimately better information means better decisions for everyone. So,
and you know what? I think like learning this over the last 4 years, and even in my previous business, which I was doing before this, I couldn't say no, because you're almost in a position where you're not maybe confident enough to say no. But what I realised, the more no's you say, this might sound really counterintuitive, the more no's you say, the more yeses you get, and the more people really want to work with you. Like, and I'm not just saying this to make them do that, but I'm just saying that to do right by them, and then they somewhat go full circle and realise actually that is the right way.
I mean, that's everything in a nutshell. You know, you can be talking to everyone in a very vanilla style, looking for every piece of business out there. Effectively, you appeal to no one, you talk to no one. If you say no, or you're directly against a certain style, group, target audience, then the people find you. And we talked about super fans, didn't we? From like year one, we were like, wow, we've got like super fans in these Facebook groups, and we don't even know who they are. They never even use it. They're not even on the database.
That's the funniest, when you're like, who are you? Like, you literally like recommended us, like saying we're amazing. What? But that's the power. And that's like that's not the power, but the hard effort and graft you put in to build that confidence into people that you haven't even met. Personal brand, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But well done. It's been awesome to see. Congratulations on being the third inductee to the 2 Comma Club. And I'm excited to see what you and Ryan do this year. It's great, obviously, seeing your marketing videos go out there. It's great to see how strict you are on the habits that you built within the business as well. And it'd be really interesting to see what you guys do this year out of Avocado over in Bracknell. So, congrats and well done.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.